Today, we're talking land, not houses, not fancy condos, not overpriced suburban lots. I'm talking about raw dirt, baby. The kind of land you can actually own, shape, and live off. Because in 2025, with interest rates still hovering around 6.8% and average home prices breaking $420,000 nationwide, a growing number of people are saying, forget the mortgage. I just want a piece of America that's mine. Now, here's the shocking part. While the national average price per acre sits around $28,000, there are still entire counties in this country where you can buy land for under $3,000 an acre, sometimes even less than a decent iPhone. According to the latest USDA land value summary, farmland prices rose 7.4% in 2024, but the cheap, rural, off-grid land we're talking about here? It's barely moved. That means opportunity, but only if you know where to look. So whether you're dreaming about an off-grid cabin, a weekend retreat, or just flipping a few acres to beat inflation, this list is your map. These are the top 10 most affordable states to buy land in 2025, where your dollar still buys real ground, real freedom, and maybe even your next adventure. 10. Michigan. You may not expect Michigan to sneak into the bottom half of this list, but in 2025 it absolutely does, especially when you get away from the Great Lakes coastline or the suburbs of Detroit. According to the 10 cheapest states to buy land in 2025 rankings, Michigan averages around $1,800 per acre for rural parcels. But here's the kicker. In some of the Upper Peninsula counties, you can see listings under $5,000, $7,000 per acre if you're willing to take swampy ground, access issues, or timber-only plots. Because Michigan has so many remoteness discounts. Poor road access, thick woods, seasonal access, those off-grid seekers get a real opportunity. Also, Michigan's land tax rates in many rural counties are considerably lower than in neighboring states, which helps your carrying cost. One additional little-known fact. Some land in Michigan retains old logging railroad easements or mineral rights held by timber companies, so make sure you dig into who holds the subsurface rights. In some, cheap enough to make a serious bid, especially if nature over neighbors is your vibe. 9. Alabama. Yes, we talked Perry County in your example, but don't write Alabama off. Much of the Black Belt and Delta Rim counties still offer dirt-cheap acreage. The statewide average for rural land in 2025 is creeping upward. Some sources estimate around $18,000 per acre or more in better spots. But in lesser-known counties, you can see $3,000, $8,000 per acre listings if you accept few utilities and unimproved roads. What many people don't realize, Alabama has a patchwork of deeded timberland parcels where the seller retains cutting rights for decades. So you might buy a parcel, then later find that someone else has rights to strip your trees. Also, Alabama has greenbelt classification laws in many rural counties. Farmland and forest land can receive huge tax breaks if you maintain them as working land. That means your tax bill could stay extremely low even as your land appreciates. So for someone who doesn't mind no water, little power, and loves the idea of living off-grid, Alabama still punches above its weight in 2025 affordability. 8. Oregon. You probably associate Oregon with Willamette Valley vineyards and hip Portlanders, but the eastern half of the state is a whole different story. High desert, sagebrush, juniper, occasional rimrock views. From the 10 cheapest states list, Oregon's average land price sits near $16,200 per acre, but that's wildly skewed by the western side. In counties like Lake, Malheur, Harney, or Grant, you'll find parcels under $2,000, $5,000 per acre, sometimes less, especially for non-irrigated parcels. Some unique insights. In eastern Oregon, there are still blight relief easements in old homesteaded plots dating to the 19th century, which can limit your ability to subdivide for decades. Also, Oregon's water rights laws are notoriously complex. Just because your parcel is in a water district doesn't guarantee you access. Many properties sold with water rights have conditional priority levels, so if you drill a well, you might not get full flow in summer. Another fun fact. Some of those eastern Oregon lands are eligible for fire mitigation grants if you agree to thinning or controlled burn programs that can reduce your cost of fire insurance. So, yes, Oregon is on this list, but you must go far east and do your homework. 7. Missouri. You heard about Shannon County in your example, but Missouri overall is quite a sleeper pick for cheap acreage. The 10 cheapest states list pegs Missouri's average rural land at $14 to $100 per acre, placing it squarely in the affordable tier. Yet in counties along the Ozark foothills, the Booth-Heel region, or remote northern counties, you'll find tracts ranging $500 to $6,000 per acre, especially for forest, hunting, or timber-only land. What many folks don't grasp, Missouri has a very active conservation easement market, meaning some landowners accept long-term restrictions, e.g., forest must stay forest, in exchange for tax breaks. That can impact your resale or development rights later. Also, some parcels sold near rivers come with floodplain restrictions or mandatory setback lines, so your buildable area might be far less than the raw acreage suggests. The hidden gem. Missouri's central location gives rail, grid, pipeline access that more western states lack. So if you ever decide to build or sell, you're not totally stranded. All told, Missouri remains a strong value state for off-grid land buyers in 2025. 6. New York, upstate. Yes, the Empire State makes the cut, but only in its rural hinterland expanses far from Manhattan. The 10 cheapest ranking gives upstate New York, especially counties like St. Lawrence, Lewis, Hamilton, Herkimer, an average in the ballpark of $12,000 per acre, far below what you'd expect in New York State's media portrayal. But peel back the curtain. In those cold winters, many parcels are distressed, tied to tax foreclosures, or have long-neglected access roads that need legal right-of-way reconfirmation. Many buyers don't know. Some old deeds in upstate NY include timber or mineral reservations that the original owner reserved decades ago, which can bite you later if someone claims rights under old statutes. Also, NY has conservation value assessments in rural counties. If you maintain land in woodland or agriculture, your property tax could drop 50–80%. That's something many folks miss when running the numbers. Another detail. The Adirondack Park boundary system is complicated, and some parcels are partially inside the Blue Line Forest Preserve boundaries, which heavily restrict development. But if you pick a parcel just outside those lines, you can get forest, streams, rolling hills, and a cooler climate, all for a fraction of what one might pay in coastal NY. This makes upstate New York a stealthy and surprising number. 6. 5. Arkansas. You might have heard folks talk about cheap land in the Deep South, but Arkansas doesn't always get its credit. In 2025, Arkansas is sneaking into that upper half of affordable, yet still very usable, land states. According to several sources, including the Top 10 Cheapest States to Buy Land in 2025 compilations, the median price per acre in Arkansas hovers around $11,500 to $11,600 for rural parcels, depending on the county. What's fascinating, and what many overlook, is that in sparsely settled counties in the Ozarks or the Arkansas Delta, you'll find tracts selling for $3,000 to $8,000 per acre, if the land is unimproved, off-grid, or lacks easy road access. Some parcels in timberland zones, especially those burdened by logging easements or restrictions, are priced even lower. Here's what you need to know directly. Arkansas has one of the more friendly regulatory and tax environments for rural land. Many counties offer agricultural classification or forest use valuation that dramatically cuts your ad valorem property taxes if you maintain the land in forest or farmland. That means your carrying costs can stay ridiculously low as you wait or plan your build. Another trick most buyers don't consider. Parts of Arkansas are overlapped by reversionary interests or old flood control easements from decades ago, meaning part of your deed might revert to the state under certain conditions, e.g., if you alter drainage. Also, many parcels come with hike-in or unimproved road access only, meaning your excavator, generator, or water delivery becomes a part of the cost equation. One more juicy detail. In counties bordering the Mississippi River or the White River, sometimes you'll see riparian access rights that can be split off and sold, which might mean someone else controls access to water along your edge. Pick carefully. Arkansas is a sneaky, underappreciated land bargain in 2025. 4. Colorado. Yes, Colorado makes the list, but not for the mountain mansions or ski resort view lots. The trick is zeroing in on the remote, high desert, high valley, or old homesteaded parcels far off the beaten path. In 10 cheapest states to buy land in 2025 data, Colorado is listed with an average near $11,600 per acre for rural land when you average across the whole state. But that number is massively inflated by prime view lots, ski country acreage, and parcels near I-70 or Front Range corridors. If you're willing to travel, go to costlier counties like Costilla, Saguache, or portions of the San Luis Valley. Those are your sweet zones. In those zones, you'll start seeing listings in the $1,500 to $8,000 per acre range, especially for stripped-down parcels with no utilities. Some parcels are sold as range land or grazing only, meaning you can't necessarily build, but many do allow small cabin or off-grid build if you secure well and septic permits. Let me dig deeper for you. Colorado is weird with water and rights. Owning land doesn't necessarily guarantee water. You often have to acquire ditch or ditch shares or seniority rights, water rights. If your parcel is down gradient or in an intermountain watershed, your water permit may have limited hours of pumping or use in dry seasons. Also, many remote parcels are subject to Bureau of Land Management, BLM, or federal grazing leases nearby, meaning cattle or sheep might use adjacent land, and your neighbors might have rights of way for stock drives. Another tidbit, some of the cheaper parcels are part of old railroad grant claims or subdivision floaters, land that was never properly platted, that can lead to boundary disputes or messy title issues. One thing people rarely mention, Colorado's Sunset Review for mineral rights is brutal. If a mining company holds old claims below the surface, you might get dinged later if they exercise them. But if you crack one of those cheap parcels that's well documented, you get a chance to live among alpine desert basins, pinyon juniper hills, and that razor-thin air with views that haunt you. Colorado is risky, but for that risk comes potential reward. 3. Mississippi. Let me tell you, if you want the kind of dirt under the nails, back-to-basics acreage that feels like it's practically begging you to build a cabin, Mississippi is your sweet spot slipping under the radar. In 2025, Mississippi's average or median price per acre for raw, rural land is reported around $10,800, which already flies in the face of what you'd expect in a state known for low cost of living. But here's the magic. In deep rural counties, think Issaquena, Quitman, Sharkey, Coahoma, Holmes, you will still find parcels priced between $2,000 to $8,000 per acre, particularly for non-irrigated, timbered, or swamped lots. Money Inc. even cites Jasper County in southeastern Mississippi, where land has been listed around $1,150 per acre in remote segments. That's the kind of number that makes your jaw drop if you've been conditioned to think land falls expensive. But let me talk to you about the nuances most people gloss over. First, Mississippi has rich soil and water potential in many regions. Unlike dry deserts, much of Mississippi's land is suitable for food production, timber, or small-scale farming, meaning your land isn't just an empty bet, it has inherent utility. Second, the state penalty of property taxes and carrying costs is quite favorable. Many rural counties have very low tax rates, especially on agricultural classification or forested land, keeping your annual drain minimal while you hold or develop. Third, there are federal and state conservation and cost-share programs where if you commit to reforestation, controlled burns, or sustainable timber practices, you can qualify for grants or tax breaks. People rarely mention that in off-grid land videos. Fourth, some parcels in Mississippi come with submerged land or old canal levee easements, meaning part of your acreage might be in wetlands or waterway buffer zones, which limits building but doesn't always subtract value if you're hunting or timbering. Further, because Mississippi has so many old generational land holdings, many parcels are tied up in heirship or probate sale, which means motivated sellers, breakup sales, and bargain opportunities. You'll want a title attorney familiar with Mississippi's land courts because quiet title issues are common. Also, many listings don't surface on mainstream MLS. You'll find deals through county tax sales or local word of mouth, which means persistence pays. 2. New Mexico. Don't let the heat or the sagebrush fool you. New Mexico is one of the best bargains in the U.S. for raw land in 2025. According to the 10 cheapest states to buy land in 2025 list, New Mexico's average price per acre clocks in at about $6,000. That number is already eye-opening for lots that are even potentially buildable. But dig deeper, and you'll find parcels in remote counties, Luna, Valencia, Torrance, Catron, Socorro, going for under $1,000, $3,000 per acre when condition, access, and water rights are limited. Here's what most people don't realize. Unlike many cheap land states that are dry and useless, New Mexico offers a spectrum: mesas, foothills, pinyon juniper zones, rangeland, and even patches you can farm if you're clever with irrigation. But as usual, the devil is in the water rights. In New Mexico, seniority of water rights matters massively. You may buy a parcel and see a ditch right or a sequia share, but your actual usable water may be ranked low in priority. Some owners use arranged pumping schedules or rationed flow. Also, many lands are adjacent to BLM or Forest Service parcels, meaning seasonal road maintenance is often your burden. Another rarely discussed point: mineral claims in New Mexico are often severed from surface titles. That means someone might hold subsurface rights to oil, gas, or minerals under your land, and unless the reservation was relinquished, they could technically explore. And yet, because so many remote parcels are overlooked by big investors, you'll often find probate sales or quiet auctions where locals unload lands for pennies on the dollar. Also, New Mexico offers tax incentives for rural and agricultural land, and in certain counties, like Mora, which your example already mentioned, you can get favorable agricultural or forest use valuations that slash your property tax. Add in low population pressures, abundant public land buffer zones, which gives you breathing room, and the aura of big skies and sunsets, and New Mexico is a serious contender for number 2. If your goal is to own land cheap, but still with some potential for habitability or value, New Mexico offers one of the best risk-reward setups. 1. Arizona drumroll. Because Arizona takes the crown in 2025 as the cheapest state per acre in many of these top 10 rankings. The 10 cheapest states to buy land in 2025 puts Arizona's average around $4,200 per acre. That's already drastically under the national averages, which in some regions of the U.S. soar tens of thousands per acre. But the real story is how deep the bargains go in the hinterlands. In Cochise, Apache, Mojave, Navajo, and Yavapai counties, you'll find parcels listed as low as $500 to $2,000 per acre, especially for desert mountain plots, washland, or heavily sloped parcels. Now, before you write it off as just desert, let me hit you with the nuanced intel you rarely see. In many of these ultra-cheap parcels, solar potential is astronomical. Full sun nearly year-round, elevation exposures, low cloud cover. You could combine cheap land with solar plus off-grid water systems to make a small footprint. Another key detail: Arizona's property tax and carrying costs are exceptionally low, especially in rural counties, and many counties offer open space or agricultural undervaluation programs that keep your annual outlay minimal while you hold. Also, while surface water is often non-existent, groundwater rights, if attainable, are frequently tied to drilling depth and aquifer characteristics. Some small developers specialize in pairing cheap parcel plus water well drilling package deals. A bit of the ugly side: check for floodwash zones, dry washes that can channel monsoon floodwater, access easement clarity. Some parcels have no legal deeded road, only user trails, and mineral or mining claims. Arizona has a long mining history. Some parcels carry those residual interests. But because so many potential buyers shy away at the first sign of Arizona desert, competition is lighter and bargains persist.